Standoff over the war in Syria has been laid bare at a special UN Security Council meeting in New York. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov called for a thorough investigation into the bombing of a UN aid convoy near Aleppo. But U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry said that listening to Mr. Lavrov made him feel as if he was in a, quote, parallel universe. RT's Ilya Petrenko has the story for us.
Well, I was talking about a lot of tension on Sergei Lavrov's first day at the UN General Assembly, but that time we didn't hear much from Sergei Lavrov and also U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry. Well, all that tension was visible and clear just ahead of the UN Security Council session on the Middle East today, and I didn't see a single smile on the faces of both of them as the top diplomats walked by me a couple of times today. Then inside the UN Security Council chamber, there were two speeches, clearly one against another. It was Sergei Lavrov speaking first, and then John Kerry took the floor. Well, to give you an idea of the heat in which the terrible Syria convoy attack was discussed today, here's a little clip.
The coalition airstrikes against government forces in Deir ez-Zor on September the 16th were a blatant violation of the ceasefire. Moreover, right after these strikes, Islamic State started their offensive against government forces.
Yes, the coalition did hit people on Saturday. We did. A terrible accident. And within moments of it happening, we acknowledged it.
We should refrain from emotions and not rush to make comment. We should carry out an investigation thoroughly and professionally.
I listened to my colleague from Russia, and I sort of felt a little bit like they're sort of in a parallel universe here.
The key priority is to separate opposition forces from ISIL and Jabhat al-Nusra terrorists.
It's very hard to separate people when they are being bombed indiscriminately.
So they're talking of living in completely separate realities. Well, that is nothing new when Washington is talking to Moscow. But I have to point out that when on Tuesday we heard John Kerry and also UN's Special Envoy on Syria speak about the ceasefire, they said that it is still not dead despite being in great jeopardy. Well, to try and make sure that this jeopardy doesn't lead to a complete collapse of the truce, Sergei Lavrov is going to meet again one-on-one John Kerry tomorrow. Then also the International Syria Support Group is going to convene in New York once again on Friday. So let's see what comes out of these meetings.
All right, Russia's envoy to the UN, Vitaly Churkin, has accused John Kerry of twisting Russia's statements on the attack on the aid convoy. RT's Murad Gazdiev has been doing some fact-checking.
John Kerry has a reputation as one of the more reasonable voices in American politics. He's careful, thorough, not a rash person. This time around, though, he was a little more relaxed with the facts.
And just think about what happened in the last couple of days. First, President Putin's press secretary, Dmitry Peskov, claims that the attack on the humanitarian convoy was somehow a necessary response to an alleged offensive by al-Nusra elsewhere in the country. That's the first claim.
No, that's the first lie. In fact, we have the actual quote from President Vladimir Putin's spokesperson, and it says, "I don't think it's right to make any unfounded statements about this attack, and that the military's collecting the details." But John Kerry didn't stop there.
Then we heard a completely different story. The Defense Ministry said that the aid convoy had been accompanied by militants in a pickup truck with a mortar. We've seen no evidence of that.
It's right there. It's been there for 24 hours ever since the Russian Ministry of Defense released the video. That is a militant truck towing a howitzer. We don't know who the truck belongs to, whether it's al-Nusra or Washington's preferred rebels. They're very friendly in Aleppo. Nevertheless, Mr. Kerry was on a roll.
Then the defense ministry switched completely. And it denied Russia's involvement. It said, according to spokesman Igor Konashenkov, I quote, "Neither Russian nor Syria conducted airstrikes on the UN humanitarian convoy in the southwestern outskirts of Aleppo." That's a quote.
That's what you call a straw man argument. No, they didn't switch because they never said that it was Russian jets who carried out this attack. In fact, the Russians said their jets had nothing to do with this attack from the onset. They later added that neither did Syrian jets. More than that, the Russian Defense Ministry released information that at the time of the attack in the skies over Aleppo at a 3-kilometer altitude was an American Predator drone, the type of drone that the United States uses for targeted assassinations in Pakistan and Afghanistan and in Syria. Here it is in all its beauty. Washington denies that that drone was ever over Aleppo.
RT spoke exclusively with the NATO Secretary General and asked for his views on the convoy bombing. Jens Stoltenberg said it is still too early to draw conclusions.
I will not speculate about that. It's important to get the facts and to find out how this could happen, but I will not speculate.
But Mr. Kerry called it facts, when he was addressing the UN Security Council.
But that's not for me to go into.
The gulf or the gap between the position of the United States and the position of Russia is still wide. They cannot agree on major issues such as delineation of forces, who's a terrorist, who's not, and so on. They also can't agree on logistics, how to move humanitarian aid, who struck the convoy. I mean, there were all kinds of things that basically, while they agree that everybody wants to resume the talks and everybody wants the ceasefire to hold, in fact, the gulf remains wide. Definitely, there seems to be a great deal of tension.
A civil defense group called the White Helmets, which operates in besieged areas of Syria, released this video shortly after the bombing occurred, claiming that Russian or Syrian airstrikes were to blame. We heard from Vanessa Beeley, an independent researcher who visited Syria during the summer. She questioned the claims coming from the White Helmets.
Conveniently, the first ones on the scene were the NATO construct and fifth columnists embedded in al-Nusra and the various assorted terrorist brigade areas throughout Syria, the White Helmets, who conveniently, as per usual, were first on the scene to photograph and give interviews. The images have been generated by Aleppo Media Center. Aleppo Media Center, as I've just revealed, is a French Foreign Office funded implant, again, in the terrorist-held areas in eastern Aleppo particularly, also funded by the United States. Even when we look at the footage of the supposed airstrike, there's no sound of helicopters or of jets, which is the claim that is being made by the White Helmets. Even the UN is starting to backtrack on that claim, and I believe that CNN has started to get a little bit shaky on the White Helmet evidence. So we're seeing, in my opinion, we're seeing the very nice creation of a false flag.
Now, Russia's defense